We've spent time today discussing all the ways that ONS can have a positive impact on career growth, whether you're a bedside nurse, you're interested in teaching, research, hospital leadership. I think more than career growth, ONS is kind of a barrier to burnout and a catalyst for professional self-care. No matter what aspect of oncology care you're involved in, it is a difficult and complex specialty. And I think with that can come a lot of challenges and tough days. And ONS brings a sense of community to that, and specifically a community that is pushing cancer care forward.
You're listening to the ONS Podcast, where ONS Voices talk cancer, a resource from the Oncology Nursing Society. Through conversations with subject matter experts, we examine the important issues in oncology nursing, from new treatments to patient-centered research to advancements in clinical practice. Join us as we hear from nurses in all facets of oncology care, from bench to bedside and everywhere in between.
Hello, and welcome to the ONS Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Escobedo, member of the ONS 50th Anniversary Committee. Today, I'm joined by Susan Groenwald, a charter member of ONS, and Amy Kaiser, an ONS member who joined as a student, to discuss how ONS membership and resources have advanced their professional growth and careers in oncology nursing. This episode is part of a series celebrating the 50th anniversary of ONS. Throughout 2025, we'll feature monthly episodes exploring ONS's rich history and promising future. Thanks for joining us, Susan and Amy.
Thank you. Good morning, Nick.
Thank you for having us.
Good morning. Good morning. So to start, what drew you to ONS? What were you hoping to gain from membership? Let's go ahead and start with Susan.
Well, I think I was different than most members of ONS in that I had not worked in oncology nursing for my career. I was in, I would say, medical nursing, and I had just finished a master's, I think the first in the country, a master's in oncology nursing, and had been tapped to take over that program to lead the graduate program. And so I was looking for resources and expertise, and I found out about the ONS being formed. I joined and ran for the board.
That's awesome. Must have been exciting back in those early days.
It certainly was.
Amy, what about you? You joined as a student, so what drew you to ONS?
Yeah, I was first joining as a student. I was at the National Student Nurses Association conference and walking around their exhibit hall when I saw the ONS booth. So I thought I was potentially interested in being an oncology nurse. I didn't really know anything about the specialty at the time. So Patrick Flynn, who was an ONS staff member who was in charge of student engagement and at the booth, helped me sign up. And I actually still work very closely with him today. So I think at that time, I was just hoping to explore the specialty and see if this is something I would be interested in. And I got to, remain connected then throughout the rest of my career. And through different ways, Patrick and I, as I was a student, tried to get some of the resources in the hands of other nursing students. And then later, after I had graduated nursing school, stayed a part of ONS throughout my career, even though it didn't begin in oncology nursing either.
That's great. Definitely a lot of benefits that our student nurses can get without having a ton of exposure to the oncology nursing field. So that's great. So Susan, in the 1980s, before ONS had published any books, you were the editor of Cancer Nursing Principles and Practice, which involved the work of several ONS members. Can you describe the landscape of oncology nursing resources at that time and what prompted the development of this book?
Yes, I mentioned that I was tapped to lead the oncology graduate program at Rush University. And so I was responsible for teaching these graduate students program, which I had graduated from, and found that there were very few resources in nursing at all. It was mostly medical literature. So I felt that there was a dearth, and I was contacted by a publisher. And so I put together a book that I felt would serve our graduate students and other nurses around the country.
It's great. I think in those early days of resources, right? Maybe can you tell us a little bit about some other ONS resources that maybe stick out to you as groundbreaking or first of their kind for oncology nurses?
Well, there were no resources that I was aware of for oncology nurses. So ONS was groundbreaking in so many areas. The area that sticks out to me was I was the board liaison to the standards committee. And so the development of oncology nursing standards, it was a hallmark and critical to the field and to me and my practice as well as education. It was a very exciting time.
Great. So, ONS celebrating its 50th anniversary, right? So I know a big emphasis on providing these resources to oncology nurses and non-oncology nurses. But if you look back on your career, what ONS resources have been the most valuable to you?
I think the standards the journal, and then just meeting people around the country to share information and to learn from and collaborate in research projects and all kinds of things. It's been invaluable.
I echo your sentiments about the networking that ONS membership has provided. It's so fun to get together, and when you go to Congress or participate in the communities, being amongst like-minded individuals who are championing the oncology nursing profession. It's very palpable and very exciting when you get these groups together. So Amy, joining as a student, what resources were most helpful to you?
I think that my very first introduction to cancer care came from the Cancer Basics course. I think I feel fortunate that I probably was the recipient of a lot of the efforts of Susan, who has pioneered so many of these different oncology resources. I had the benefit of being at school during a time where there were a ton of resources available through ONS. And so we can still feel a little bit that there's maybe a little bit of a dearth in the curriculum that nursing students are kind of afforded in oncology specifically. Just, there's so much information that a nursing student needs to learn to prepare for boards. And oftentimes these school curriculums just have a really small oncology section. So I took the Cancer Basics course, and that was my first exposure to really what is cancer care. And I was taking that prior to nursing externship that I was going to be doing that summer. And so it allowed me to kind of have a curriculum piece to kind of go along with that experience. And, I think as we talk about getting together and talking about some of these conversations while at conference, there have been so many discussions about how you can kind of create that curriculum and that didactic portion that maybe isn't supplemented as much in nursing education by tapping into some of ONS's resources and kind of building a didactic piece. So I actually still work with that fellowship program that I was involved with, and we're really trying to use some of the ONS resources that are out there to kind of get them in the hands of students who are interested in oncology nursing and be able to use those resources and supplement more of a didactic component to what is already a clinical experience.
You touch on such a great point there, that many nursing students don't get exposed to the oncology nursing field. And so giving them this resource and tool, because as you all know, oncology patients, are out and about in many different areas of the continuum of care. So that's really great that you're helping to use a little bit of what ONS has put together in these resources to expand the reach of oncology nursing.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have so many resources that are available. I think when you kind of go onto the site, a lot of times people don't necessarily know all that's out there for them, especially students who not only maybe aren't sure that they want oncology, but, probably aren't involved with the professional organization at that time. Being able to kind of get some of those resources in their hands has been really exciting.
Well, that's a great segue to my next question for you, Amy. So as you're maybe providing some of these pivotal moments for nursing students in their careers, can you share a pivotal moment in your career when an ONS resource really made a big difference?
I kind of continue to stay involved with that nursing organization, and I've been trying to find ways to get students more involved. And they complete an evidence-based practice project at the end of their fellowship experience. And they do all this work of literature review to be able to kind of compile this project. And so I thought, wouldn't it be exciting if they could then go present it at the Oncology Nursing Society and have a poster presentation, turn it into an abstract, go through that whole process. So I had reached out to the organization that runs this fellowship, the Flynn Foundation, and asked their president, do you think this is a feasible idea? Could we sponsor students to go? And I think I kind of expected him to say, sure, we'll get somebody on this who has a level of expertise and experience. But instead he turned around and was like, okay, do you think you could lead that effort? And I had no experience with abstract writing. I had no experience with turning things into posters other than, one time as a student, having done an EBP project, I hadn't done anything else in that realm. So what to me was really helpful is I went on to ONS, where I had gotten resources before. I took their Introduction to Evidence-Based Practice course. And then I used resources in the form of, the people involved with ONS. I reached out to Lanice Taylor, who's a staff member for ONS, and she works a lot with the poster presentations. And she kind of guided me through the process of giving me the resources I needed and taught me what I needed to know in order to be successful. And so I was able to get mentorship. I was able to kind of learn how to do this process. I was able to go to different sessions that taught me how to abstract write. And then I was able to get students through the process of being able to do presentations at conferences. And so we had 2 our first year, and then we've continued to grow. And we've now had 12 students go through this process, and 5 presented at this most recent conference. And it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful to my professional development. It's allowed me to kind of continue to work in this professional development space and become a board of directors now for this organization and kind of expand what our student efforts are. And it's been wonderful to kind of get these students to be able to present at conference. And a lot of that comes from the ability of me to be able to tap into some of the resources at ONS and use their EVP module and kind of go through the steps that way, and then reach out to the people that were able to connect me to even more resources.
I'm going to ask this to both of you. So Susan, maybe we'll start with you. Are there any hidden gems within ONS that most nurses should be taking advantage of?
I don't know how hidden they are anymore, but I think having served on the foundation board, I would love to see more nurses apply for scholarships. We have such a rich array of opportunities available to nurses for research as well as school that not enough apply.
Yeah, no, thank you for that call out. Definitely, that's an untapped resource and opportunity that the Oncology Nursing Foundation really puts out. So thank you for mentioning that. Amy, what about you? Any other hidden gems?
Yeah, I think there's so much out there. And as we were getting students involved, we've had sessions where Patrick Flynn comes and he talks kind of about what are these resources. And I find every time he does it, I realize there's more out there than I originally had thought. So I think for new to practice, even just using some of the drug reference sheets is really helpful. Not all hospitals have such a breadth of resources available to nurses. So being able to do that while you're starting out, using, ONS Voice or even this podcast to kind of connect to the bigger oncology nursing community and just see what's out there, see what's progressing, and kind of feel like you're, a part of that community and have a pulse on what's going on in the broader cancer world, no matter what specialty you're in. There's so many articles that are out there that you can read, that you can find what's interesting to you. And I think even this podcast is so exciting. ONS is kind of giving in so many different mediums a way to absorb information. And so even if you're not somebody that likes to, go through and read articles, you can be going for a walk and listening to things that you find interesting. So I think there are tons of hidden gems. And I think there are tons of resources that if people knew about, they would be using more often.
ONS does a great job in the way of trying to meet people where they want to be when it comes to all of the rich resources that are provided. So you touched on it. There's written, verbal, audio. There's so many different things that are out there. As long as people know where to find them and how to take advantage of them, that's great. So we talked a little bit about this, of just kind of the networking and community that being an ONS member provides. So, Susan, when you first became a member of ONS, how did you network with other nurses, without some of the things that we see very commonplace now, like social media or even the ONS communities?
I was trying to remember if we even had the internet then for communicating via email. I don't think so. It was the old-fashioned pick up the phone and call someone. But having attended the meetings and getting involved in some of the committees is where I met people and worked with people. And that became, for me, very vital for doing a book, where it was a contributed book, an edited book. So we had lots of different chapters and contributors, but I met them all through ONS. And how we communicated was via the old-fashioned mail and telephone. I didn't even have a computer. We typed the whole manuscript, thousands and thousands of pages, the first couple editions. So it was just slogging, but ONS helped us to make those connections and to forge them through the committee work that I was involved in. It was a very exciting time as the industry was developing and the specialty. In fact, in all of nursing, I was able as a board member to go to the ANA meeting of specialty groups, of which ONS was a part. To see the specialty groups developing in nursing was very exciting. And again, an opportunity to meet lots of folks within nursing that I never would have met in my work at Rush at the time.
I love that. And I think that very much relationship-based, grassroots type of efforts that laid a foundation for this organization that really has become the leader in oncology nursing care really has set a great foundation for ONS. And I mean, again, we're celebrating its 50th anniversary. And so through efforts like yours and many volunteers and leaders through the organization have really set us up for the next 50 years, which is so exciting. So Amy, hearing from Susan, how would you say this is different from your experience when you were a new member to ONS and kind of navigating the networking community aspect of the organization?
Yeah, so I feel like in a way, this should have been so easy for me. I feel like when you connect to your local chapter, you're getting all these emails that are like, this is where we're meeting. And these are the posters that are happening right now. But unfortunately, I had done a bad job. And when I signed up for ONS as a student, and then I continued that same membership, I had only signed up for the national piece of it. And so I didn't realize that I wasn't connected to all of these organizations that are happening on a community level. So I was in North Carolina at the time, and I was going to my first ONS conference. And at the time, I was actually a pediatric med-surg nurse. So I was going, I had always known I wanted to do oncology nursing, and I was working with that organization to get students involved still. But I realized I didn't know a single person at this conference. And I didn't realize that I also didn't sign up for my local chapter, which was a mistake on my end. So I got to the conference and was trying to figure out, how am I going to meet people? How am I going to grow my network? How am I going to approach people at this conference? And so I was a little intimidated, especially, not even being an oncology nurse and also being very, very new to nursing in general. But I got to the conference and I went to different presentations that I thought were interesting. I would go up and, talk to the person who was speaking after, introduce who I was. And then I got a little bit craftier and I used the agenda booklet that they give you at the beginning of the conference. And I saw, okay, here's somebody that's speaking from Duke, and I will go because I wanted to meet some of these North Carolina people. I'll go up to him afterwards and kind of introduce myself. And what I ended up finding was this magical snowball effect where he introduced me to people he knew. And I ended up growing this big community. And I really only had to go up to the first couple people in order to do it. But I met people that are now on the ONS board, someone that was, now directs nursing research and evidence-based practice at Duke. I got to learn from her a little bit about research, which I was really interested in. I met somebody else who was in charge of global research at UNC. I later worked with her in grad school on a global project. And I met several professors that I would interact with later when I actually went to UNC. And I met somebody at that first conference who, years later, when I had some actual oncology experience, invited me to guest lecture pediatric content of the oncology elective at UNC. So it opened up so many of these doors for me, that first conference. And these are still people that I interact with now. And that when I go to conference, I'm so excited to see. But it did take a little bit of going up to that first person and introducing yourself at conference. But I think what we've talked about, what's so wonderful about going to conference is everybody there is looking to move oncology nursing forward and meet people and connect and network. And it's this, magical space of people who are meeting and sharing shared experiences. And I got to feel all of that prior to even being an oncology nurse. And I went home from that first conference, immediately discussed with my manager that I wanted to move to the oncology floor, and I did. But it was meeting all of those people and kind of hearing about those career paths that did that for me. And then, using the actual ONS makes it so easy. Then I got involved with the local chapter and was able to connect with people that way.
What I heard from both of you as you shared your experiences is definitely a little bit of vulnerability to be a kind of that grassroots person to pick up the phone or make the introduction. And you never know where that's going to take you in your careers. As we have maybe newer oncology nurses or folks kind of looking in the oncology specialty for, the next thing. If you were to give any advice to our members looking to build strong connections with each other and other nurses within ONS, what would that be? Susan, we'll start with you.
Well, I think the obvious is to get involved in the local chapter, which is easier to attend than the national conventions. But if you can afford the national conventions, it's invaluable for making connections outside of your local area. Where I really learned and developed relationships that turned into friendships that have lasted these 50 years is getting involved in committee work. Both in my local, I was part of the formation of our local chapter in Chicago. Those friendships are still going on today. The same with the national chapter, just getting involved in committees, contributing your time is where you meet and develop relationships. So that's what I would recommend.
Amy, what about you? What advice would you be given to new members wanting to enhance those connections with other nurses in ONS?
I think it's really easy to feel like, Oncology Nursing Society or any professional organization is for people who are later in their career, who are publishing books or doing research. And I think a lot of times that prohibits, your early bedside nurses from feeling like they should be getting involved or that they have the qualifications to become involved. And so I think that I found being early in career that people love new nurses. People are excited to hear from new nurses and people want new nurses involved with ONS. And so I think it's kind of taking that vulnerability and feeling, a little intimidated that maybe people have more experience than you do and turning that into such an asset, because I think that instead of seeing it as a limitation, I think everyone does want these new nurses in this space. And I actually think it can be really helpful, and that unique perspective can give you something to say in this space. So I think it's kind of turning that intimidation piece into your own asset and just starting to get involved. I think people who are involved with ONS, I found, are also very, very willing to mentor. I was very fortunate as I was speaking to these people, not even being an oncology nurse, that they were so welcoming and wanted to welcome me into the specialty and wanted to show me how to get involved. So I think it's just taking that very first step of talking to somebody or going to that local chapter meeting. And then the rest of it becomes a lot easier.
This resonates with me. Definitely I feel like oncology nurses are poised for leadership. And y'all gave several examples of just how you can use your voice and advocate for the oncology nursing profession and for our patients through the specialty. And so through the different slants that you have put together and talked through here, the emphasis on building those connections with one another is the start. And just as we chip away at this and do more of this, definitely it's going to be exciting to see where the profession and where the Oncology Nursing Society goes in the next 50 years. So y'all have touched on this a little bit. Maybe we'll deeper dive into it. And so ONS, of course, offers numerous volunteer opportunities for its members. So maybe we'll start with Susan. So with a couple of your examples that you've talked through, do you have anything else that you want to highlight as far as your volunteer work with ONS? And maybe you can dig a little deeper into kind of what impact did it have for oncology nursing or you personally?
I'm not sure that I haven't touched on everything, but one thing Amy mentioned that I think is important is that new nurses have so many opportunities. I think it's scary to put forth an abstract to speak at the conference. It's scary, but it's such a great opportunity for anybody at any level in their career. If they have something of interest to share, it's such a great place. I feel like it launched my career in terms of being able to speak in front of people and think critically about things and put together some projects. That this all came from my work in ONS. So at all levels, volunteering in committees, for convention committee, getting involved in all that would be a great way to develop people. And for those of us later in our career, mentoring people to do the same. Amy mentioned that people did that for her. And I think that's our obligation, but there's so many opportunities. We just have to encourage the new nurses to get involved at any level that they can. And one other thing I want to mention, which is not exactly what you were asking, Nick, but I've been part of the steering committee for the History Center. And I think this is going to be a resource that probably people don't even know about yet, or at least they don't know much about it as it's developing. But it's going to be such a rich resource for our members to look at what went before, but also a look into what can happen in the future.
No, I love that. Thank you for those call outs for sure. And, highlighting the abstract piece and just being willing to take a chance and a risk. And the ONS is such a great place where you've got a collective group of people who are there to support and guide and nurture and resource. And just by taking that little bit of a risk, you never know what may come out of it.
Absolutely.
So Amy, what about you? Any other volunteer opportunities or things that you want to highlight that really just had an impact for either oncology nursing or for you personally?
Yeah, I think, Susan, as you're bringing up EVP, that really was something that had such an impact on my career as well. I think that becoming involved with that is what ultimately allowed me to network within ONS and opened up a lot professionally for me through meeting people, but also learning that process. I think that the first time I did it, I was stumbling over it a little bit, and it feels intimidating when you're doing it the first time. And there was a student that didn't get accepted when I was doing it the first time. And I had to kind of learn that process, but I became a lot better at it. And Memorial Sloan Kettering is where I'm working right now. And they have a SEEK program that goes through evidence-based practice. And so I'm getting to kind of do my own project using some of the skills I had gained from doing it with students. And it's been so rewarding for me as well. I mean, I'm early to career and I'm mostly on the receiving end of mentorship right now, but being able to kind of mentor students has been so rewarding, watching them get to do all this work for evidence-based practice and then watching them not only deploy some of these projects in their own hospitals, but to present it at ONS in such a warm environment. I think the students are nervous to do it for the first time, but you get to that poster hall and people only want to tell the students how wonderful of a job that they've done and how wonderful it is that they're doing that type of work as students. And so getting to see them go through that experience and then continue on with evidence-based practice has been wonderful. I mean, we had a student that presented and has gone on to write a manuscript and is doing another project this year. And you can just see how good he is at EPP and how good he is at research, and watching that kind of have started and then now turn into manuscript and continue has been really exciting. So that's been something that's been very rewarding to my career.
Oh, well, thank you both for those examples. Our last kind of topic here, as we've spoken about kind of through the session here, we're looking at where is ONS going in the next 50 years of its legacy. Susan, we'll start with you. In what ways do you see ONS shaping the future of oncology nursing?
As the leader, I think wherever patient care is going and oncology care in general, ONS will be a leader. It has been since the beginning and will continue to be.
Amy, what ways are you seeing that ONS is going to shape the future of oncology nursing?
I think it's being that organization, like Susan said, that is in the leadership position of oncology nursing and is inspiring and supporting the future of oncology nursing, no matter where it goes. I think we've spent time today discussing all the ways that ONS can have a positive impact on career growth, whether you're a bedside nurse, you're interested in teaching, research, hospital leadership, whatever it is. But I think more than career growth, I see ONS as kind of a barrier to burnout and a catalyst for professional self-care. I think that no matter what aspect of oncology care you're involved in, it is a difficult and complex specialty. And I think with that can come a lot of challenges and tough days. And ONS brings a sense of community to that, and specifically a community that is pushing cancer care forward. So, I mean, I think working bedside, I think you think of individual patient cases that can feel really futile and heartbreaking. And you can go to ONS and see that research is moving forward and that outcomes are improving and progress is being made. And I think that can have a huge impact on your own self-care and your professional resiliency in the specialty. And we had talked about, there's just something so powerful about being in a room with hundreds of nurses or thousands of nurses even who have these shared experiences that are unique to oncology nursing, no matter where they practice. And right now I'm early in my career and I'm fortunate to not have experienced burnout, but I hope to spend the next 50 years of my career in this space. So I think it's important to make sure that you're being proactive about building that community and utilizing your resources to make your career feel meaningful and supported, and not only for career growth, but to mitigate your burnout. And I think ONS has a unique ability to pull nurses into the specialty and see all that oncology nursing has to offer. But more than that, I think this organization has the ability to make our current nursing workforce strong so that they have the tools and the support to do this job well for a long time.
Oh, I love that. Definitely kind of stronger together mentality. And we're all going to be here to support one another. So thank you for sharing for you both. We've talked today, and just in a quick summary of our discussion here, building off of the legacy of leaders like Susan and hearing from leaders like Amy of their experience with ONS membership and the resources that have helped advance their professional growth and careers in many, many different ways. And so, Susan and Amy, I want to thank you for taking some time to talk with me today and sharing your journey. Definitely, I'm hoping that it resonates with many of our listeners here. Just so thankful for spending some time with us today. And definitely, we're hoping folks take advantage of all of these different resources and things that ONS is providing, and taking a little bit of a chance to use your voice, use your leadership to really advance the oncology nursing profession. So thank you both so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the ONS Podcast. Tell us about your favorite part in this episode by leaving a review wherever you download your podcast. For more resources and information about oncology nursing, visit us at ons.org and ons.org/voice. The ideas and opinions shared in this episode represent those of the guest and not necessarily ONS.